Okay, you should be good to go.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, members of council, staff, and the general public. Welcome to our regular meeting of council on Monday, April the 19th, 2021. I have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Lyle Warden. Be resolved that the April 19th, 2021 council meeting of the Township of South Glengarry now be open at 7 p.m. All in favor of the motion? The motion's carried. Thank you. I would ask everyone to please rise for the playing of our national anthem. Crystal, please. Thank you, Crystal. We'll move to number 3, the approval of the agenda. I have a motion moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Martin Lang. Be resolved that the council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda. Is there any additions to the agenda, Madam Clerk?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. We have the addition of an item in closed session being staff report 59-2021, which pertains to the sale of surplus lands. There are also a number of items that have been requested to be moved from information only to other business, those being item 7D1, building permit statistics, 7D5, the SDG library request, and item 7D10 being the resolution requesting support for fire departments.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd also like 7D6 to be pulled as well, please.
Is that the Butterfly Way project?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we have 4 items coming out of the information purposes only, so we'll move them under number 2, under other business. Is there any other additions to the agenda? Not seeing none, so the motion would be as amended. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? I have one in regards to the item that was just discussed and the second item that was added to the closed session. I would like to declare a conflict of interest in regards to a lot in Lancaster Heights that is listed with an agent in my real estate office company that I am part owner of. So at that part of the closed session, I'll ask Deputy Mayor Warden to take part of the meeting. Any other declarations of conflict of interest? Not seeing them, we'll move to the approval of the minutes of April the 6th. I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of South Glengarry held on April 6, 2021, including the closed session minutes, be adopted as circulated. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. And we'll move into presentations and delegations. Tonight we have SD&G County's Regional and Capital Works Project. We have the CAO, Mr. Tim Simpson, and Mr. Ben DeHaan. Gentlemen, welcome.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Prevost. It's a pleasure for Ben and I to be here tonight. It's good to kind of see everybody. I haven't seen some of you in so long, with the pandemic. So we're glad to be here. Ben is going to share his screen with you, and I'll just give him the cue when we want to get rolling. Ben, we shouldn't be more than a couple hours. I think that I'm just kidding. We'll be very quick. As your mayor and deputy mayor will know, we've already had a long day of meetings, so we'll be very brief. We're just going to give a brief. Ben, if you go to the next slide, please. We're just going to give a very brief update. I'm going to talk in some generalities, and Ben's going to cover the infrastructure project. So this is something that Ben brought up to me a little while ago. We had done it several times in the past, obviously in person. We can't do it in person this time, but we thought it would be a good way just to an informal way to provide some information to you locally. And Ben will, like I said, Ben will home in on the specifics. So we won't be too long. We know we have a full agenda tonight. So Ben, please. Just a couple of slides on the budget. Obviously, the budget's a very large document, and there's tons of information. I just kind of condensed a couple of points. I think for interest's sake, it was approved about a month ago in the middle of March by council. They had a modest tax decrease of about 0.75%, and that's based on the 2021 residential assessment across the county this year, which is a little over $221,000. It's modest, but I think council wanted to recognize the fact that it's we're the times we're in and do their part to make sure that they're not adding to the tax burden. The next point's an important one. We've now fully funded the commitments that the county made to both the Dundas Manor and the Maxwell Manor, and those two long-term care homes will be funded to the tune of $6.5 million. By county taxpayers. So that money's in the bank, and it's waiting for both of those facilities to come ahead and start construction. You'll know a couple weeks ago the Maxwell Manor received their commitment for provincial funding. So with the COVID, I'm not sure how long it's going to be before they actually get started, but as I said, the money's in the bank and we're ready to roll with them. And obviously the pandemic's highlighted the crucial role that long-term care homes play, not only for our residents, but in our communities as well. Just a short note on what the top three expenses are at the county. The budget was a little over $50 million. Half of that, about 50%, $25.3 million, is for transportation services, which Ben is going to speak to. Policing, it comes in at number 2 at a little $10.4 million, almost $10.5 million. And the third biggest expenditure for us is health and social services. That's almost $10 million. That includes funding for the health unit, land ambulance, social services, housing services, childcare, and about $1 million a year to the Glen Storton Lodge, which Deputy Mayor Warden sits on that board. Ben, please. I put up this slide because everybody always asks, and I'm sure most of you know this, but this is how the pie works at the county, who pays what, and it's based on weighted assessment, and it varies from year to year, a little up, a little down. So you'll see that South Glengarry, as you know, contributes the most to the county levy at about 22.3%. Last year it was 22.5%. So it varies based on growth rates. North Dundas has a lot of growth happening right now, and they're at about 19.2. So those are the two biggest contributors to the county. It's equitable in terms of even though people pay slightly different amounts, in terms of providing services and roads and social services and all the things we do, it's based on need. It's not based on location. So Ben, next slide, please. This is the final slide on the budget. Again, it's just for interest's sake, and it shows you how the assessment, what percentages of assessment and what percentage of tax revenue across the county are derived from those assessments. So you'll note the top two, the residential sector has about 57% of the assessment, but comes in at about 3/4 of about 75% of the tax dollars are generated from the the residential property class. And then on the other hand, farmland and managed forest, 32% of the assessment and about 10% of the tax revenue. And obviously that's provincial wide. That's a function of the 25% value that farmland and managed forest are assessed at. So, and then the rest are obviously minimal in terms of how much they contribute to the overall tax dollars across the county. Ben? Switch gears a little bit here to economic development and tourism. As you've probably heard, we have Tara Kirkpatrick on board. She was formerly with North Glengarry, so she's our manager of economic development, and she's working closely with everybody, including your folks in South Glengarry, on regional incentives program and some of the other programs that we're doing. I'll just highlight quickly. We had a long discussion this morning at County Council about the regional incentives program. So I'm just going to go over it very quickly. It was approved. There were some amendments. They were approved by County Council this morning, and that document's being forwarded to your council. I think that went out today, so we'd ask you to get on your next agenda. We made some improvements, we think, based on feedback from users to make it easier to use, more intuitive, and really effective and efficient, and really focus the grants on the business sector that needs help. We're hoping to have an intake period scheduled this June 2021, and there's $250,000 that council's allocated this year towards economic development initiatives countywide. And to date, since 2018, when the program was launched, there's been over $600,000 invested in primarily in local businesses, but conservation authorities and so on and so forth were previously eligible. They're no longer eligible. So it's private sector that council's focusing on. Ben? And just a couple of, just one slide on our new economic development strat plan. It was approved by council late last year, and it's providing a roadmap for the next 2 to 3 years, I said, and there's 6 priority areas, advocacy being the first, so broadband access, natural gas expansion, those things that are really important to our residents. Obviously, the pandemic's highlighted the importance of broadband access. And I did see today in the federal budget, the feds have allocated another $1 billion to the Universal Broadband Fund, which I believe brings it up to $2.5 billion. So hopefully some of those dollars land in our area to address the gaps that EORN and groups like that continue to work on in terms of the broadband. I will note that you would have seen a press release 2 weeks ago, the Cell Gap project, which is cellular broadband. The Eastern Ontario Regional Network is inked a contract with Rogers Communication to build that out over the next 2 to 3 years. So new towers, enhanced towers, and hopefully that will bring truly high-speed cellular access. So, you know, downloading and uploading videos on your phone, it's more than just drop calls. It's true mobile broadband. And, you know, I live in Williamstown, and I usually have to go outside to talk on the phone. So I'm really hoping that I really hope that improves it over the next couple of years. The second is to enhance the use of digital tools that we're using, so our social media platforms and so on and so forth, to communicate with our residents. Regional incentives program, which I touched on. Another big one is to foster and facilitate regional investment growth through an investment attraction plan. We want to strengthen our brand where Ontario began. So working with you folks and some of the sub-regional brands to make them more complementary and recognized. And again, like everybody, we want to attract and invest in small businesses and producers. And there's an opportunity there with, we keep hearing about remote workers. So we want to obviously get on that train and get as many of those folks as we can in our area. So Ben? County Library, they're offering, obviously with the pandemic and the shutdown right now, there's no in-branch services, but they're assisting any folks that want help with registering for vaccination appointments, older folks or whoever. They can call in their local library to help them register. So that's one thing that we've been working with the health unit on. Curbside only at this point. The other programs, the e-library, the newspapers, and so on and so forth, they're continue to be offered virtually at your home. And it's a big year this year. 2021 is the 50th anniversary of the county library system. It was started in 1971. So there's events taking place throughout this year, and the hope is that maybe later in the year some live events can take place. We're not sure at this point, but we really want to celebrate the milestone. It's one of the only county libraries in the province. Ben? IT, just very quickly, a couple changes, and I know our IT staff works very closely with your IT staff. We've got the green light to add a support tech, so that's a frontline staffer that's going to answer not only our calls, but your calls for assistance. And we've reclassified the business system analyst to a coordinator. That's more a technical change. And the goal being to provide increased customer service to not only the county, but its local municipalities. We recently implemented voice over IP at the county admin building, which is saving us quite a bit of money. And it's a good system. And I know our folks are working, as I put in this last bullet point, working with your folks to get VoIP at your administrative office, the fire hall in Lancaster, and the arena in Williamstown, Charlotte. Okay, Ben. This is my last slide, I believe. This is something that I know as Councillor Jaworski's working with me and the others on the committee very closely with. We've hired a consultant, Horizon Educational Consultant, to work with us to develop a plan that we can use to advocate for children in the county. And one of the county council's strategic priority is, as you'll see there, educating children in their own communities. So we're working with Horizon Educational Consultants we've just started recently to develop that report, and we've got a working committee composed of quite a few individuals from around the area. Our goal is to have a draft completed by July to present to County Council, and once that document's approved, we hope to advocate for improvements for students within SDNG. So that's it for me. So I guess, Ben, before you start, maybe Mr. Mayor, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I went through it pretty quickly.
We're glad to hear that. Thank you. Thanks very much for your presentation. So I'll open it up to members of council if there's any comments or questions. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, Mr. Simpson, for your presentation. It's quite nice to have you come and update us on the high points of what's happening at County Council. And thank you very much again for your leadership on the educational review file. I think we are going to have some a good product that will come out of that. But my question to you is on the tax class rates that you presented earlier. The industrial, pipeline, commercial, are those all rates that the county controls? Is it all individually controlled? You know, sort of how we basically at our level, right, only really have the control over the residential tax class rate. So I'm curious about that.
Yeah, tax through you, Mr. Mayor, if I might.
Right. Yeah,
that's a good question. Tax ratios are set at the upper tier level, but they're prescribed by the province in terms of range of fairness. As you know, the one that is prescribed specifically is the residential. Well, residential is 1, and then farm managed forest is 0.25, and then the rest are set by via tax ratios by County Council. You know, to fill out the 100% of that pie. So, I mean, our rates, I would suggest our rates are very typical of you know, for multi-res, commercial, and small and large industrial, anywhere between, you know, 2 to 2.5 to 3, I think are pretty common. So does that answer your question, Councillor Jaworski?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's tax ratios and tax rates and all that is pretty dry stuff. So appreciate the question.
Okay, thank you. I'll move to Councillor Layton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Mr. Simpson, for the report. I'm just gonna, it's nothing to do with my question, but when you said the 0.25 for farming, at the maximum of 0.25.
Correct.
The counties can make it lower if they so choose. That's another topic. Anyway, the voice over IP, I'm not sure what that is. Could you just kind of give me a little bit about what that is? Yeah,
absolutely. And you're quite right on that the 25% is the maximum. It can be lower. Yeah, voice over IP is it uses, rather than having a voice go through a regular copper line, it comes through your computer. So it's carried on your internet connection. So you get, you can't even tell. I mean, we implemented it before we left the office because of COVID again. We had implemented again, and it works quite well. You can't even tell that it's different. The beauty is you get to drop once it's live, Councillor Lang, you get to drop all the Bell copper lines. So I don't have the exact figure, but we had many copper lines coming into the county building, and as a commercial, they're all charged at a commercial rate. So the savings, Ben, I don't know if you can remember, or Mayor Prevo, but it's a substantial savings once it's all implemented, and it works quite well. So, and I know Mike, our RT guys working with the folks at your end to make it a reality for you guys.
All right, thanks. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, thank you. I apologize for that. It was a bit of an acronym. So everything's going digital, and so are the phone lines.
Yeah, I don't want to mention in regards to the savings. I don't remember it offhand, and I certainly don't want to be wrong. But any other questions or comments? I know Deputy Mayor Warden and myself has heard this a few times at County Council, so I'll open it up to the other members. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, I do want to thank Tim. I know that you're not done, but it's good to see you guys out and about speaking to the other members. We're all very contained to our houses these days, so we're not getting out as much as in the past. So I appreciate this presentation. It's good to have it. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing none. Thank you to you both gentlemen for being here this evening and give us an update in regards to what's taking place.
Ben,
sorry.
Ben still has to give his information. I understand your desire to move forward, but
that's okay. Go ahead.
He's got all the. I have the dry stuff. He has the good stuff.
Yeah.
It's only 30 slides, so it's not going to take
perfect. That's
too long. Actually, I feel sorry for you, Mr. Mayor and Deputy Mayor. You've listened to me ramble on all day here. So, okay, I'll very quickly go through some of the major highlights of infrastructure work taking place in South Glengarry. Biggest project that I can talk about, and of course, it's a function of having a warden in that municipality. I'm just kidding. Of course, we're following our asset management plan, but one of our biggest paving project this year is paving County Road 34 from between Lancaster and County Road 18, and it's there, it's ready for that work, and we're looking forward to getting that work done. And I'm actually quite excited to see that project completed, because it'll really improve the condition of that roadway. And just for context, when we're doing our roadway work, we are using predominantly nowadays an asphalt recycling process. So instead of removing or taking away the material we've invested in previously, we're able to chew it all up, add some emulsion to it, and then actually get some value out of it. So for us, we love this process. It seems to give us the kind of durability we're looking for in our roadways, and really, again, it's saving money and saving. It is kind of a more green process compared to other ways of doing work. And that project, back to that one, that's a $2.4 million project roughly for that stretch of roadway. So a good chunk of money we're putting into that road. Big bridge, and big is relative. I appreciate the patience you folks had last year as we did Grace Creek. That was a long project, but I trust as you've gone over that bridge, you'll see why, and you'll understand that now that it's done, we're not going to have to. I won't hopefully have to touch that again in my career. But it was great, and I appreciated the cooperation, support, and the use of the detour for that roadway. And as you may recall, we had Boundary Road where we had to do some repairs. It's a relatively small project. It's about a 6-week project. It's going to add about 5+ years of life to that bridge, and it's really a function of the way that bridge is designed. It's reached a point in its life where we can't inspect a design critical piece of that structure, and we need to do some like a hole to it to anchor it down to make sure that, not that it's a calamitous failure that would happen, but what would happen is if something really heavy went over it and some of those members that are kind of keeping that bridge anchored down, if they're rusted through, we'd actually see the ends kind of separate a little bit, similar, not maybe as dramatic, but what we saw at the Nipigon Bridge back a couple of years ago with the ministry and their new bridge. But so this is a really preventative work that we're trying to do, and something we see is a 5-year fix, after which we actually have to look at a brand new bridge there, just because of the way the old design was done there. So we have awarded that work. We awarded it at this council meeting, and we'll look forward to kind of updating your staff in terms of the schedule, and hopefully that information will flow to you. Other big paving project that we're doing in South Glengarry this year is County Road 18, essentially from the boundary to County Road 20. But the reality is as Tim alluded to, you know, we don't look at our work on a municipality basis. It's really on asset management principles and kind of just a regional look to the roadways. So this year, council has invested money right from Highway 138 all the way to County Road 20. So that's going to be brand new asphalt that entire way. The section I'm referring to in South Glengarry really is about $1.2 million worth of paving just of the rural part of the roadway. More general work we're working on this year is, of course, and thanks for your participation for all those that were able to attend. We're working through the regional waste management plan, and we look forward to kind of providing some ideas, some concepts, and some collaboration opportunities for local municipalities. We are working through winter maintenance innovations. I show a picture on that slide of some of our anti-icing, our anti-icing unit that we have, and we've, you know, purchased the tank. We've purchased some of that, and that's a technology we continue to roll out because we see it as a lot of opportunity there for kind of the next level in terms of how to save money and do a good job with winter maintenance. We are investing in our patrol yards, just some of the things you might see from the outside, some you wouldn't, but you know, we do need to spend money at home sometimes, and that's some of the work we're doing this year. We are working on CCTV storm sewer work this year on 3 of the 6 municipalities, and the intent there is part of asset management. Again, we want to get good condition and understanding of how our storm sewers are right now, and help us plan and prepare for the future. The other winter maintenance technology I do want to point out, and something we'll look forward to if it's an opportunity that Chris has for your council or your municipality, we are going to be spending money on our AVL units. We're replacing that's the satellite technology that talks to our trucks, and just that gives us the opportunity where we sit at our desks during wintertime, we can monitor what's happening and be able to track. And it's great for not only when we get calls from residents asking about where the plow is or where it's going, but also allows us to integrate with our website and provides the record keeping we need if we are called to task because of an accident, and kind of that information we need to share with insurance and through that investigation. On the planning side of things, we are finishing up our Natural Heritage Study, and that's an exciting project for the county because it is one of a kind in a sense in Ontario, where we've partnered with Prescott Russell, and you know, that project was about identifying natural areas and linkages between these core natural areas, and putting some policies in place to help protect and strengthen our natural environment. And you know, we've worked with Joanne on some of this to date, and we appreciate her help. And you know, when I think of South Glengarry, the first thing that comes to mind to me for natural areas is of course Somerstown Forest, and what a gem that is. And you can kind of see how it links. You know, we provide in the map that I'm showing here some of those linkages between that area and other areas of natural significance. We are working through our official plan appeal, and I won't spend much time on that. I know Joanne's been, you know, she's very proactive, and we appreciate her help through this process. And I know she's kept your council relatively up to speed in terms of what's going on there. We are intending to complete a growth and population study this year, and that's really to look at the dwindling supply of urban lands for commercial and residential development throughout the county. With two realtors on your council, I think that might be a record in SD&G, and well, maybe not, but with 2 realtors, I'm sure you can appreciate the market we're in right now and the need to continue to find ways to support the growth that we're seeing throughout SD&G. Last other kind of project of interest and excitement is the light detection and ranging project, and South Glengarry's invested in this already. And actually, I use the example that Joanne and I keep referring to Joanne, but we recently had where we were able to use LiDAR to help somebody that's interested in a severance and trying to understand exactly where floodplains were and low areas in the property. So it's been, you know, that to me is a great technology, and it's something that I think will benefit all of SD&G. Last slide here is with relation to forestry, because that's another thing in another division in my purview. We continue to actively purchase and acquire new forests. So if you know people who are interested in donating forests to the public, we can accept that. We can provide charitable receipts. We can split charitable receipts and or purchase price, and we can accept it through the federal ecological gifts program. So there's a bunch of different options, and we're happy to work with individuals if that's the way they want to go. And in South Glengarry, we're actually working through an ecological gift right now, just north of Martintown, which a nice, beautiful forest, and we're looking forward to having a more, I guess, formal ribbon cutting as that process winds down. Again, our management of existing forests. So all our forests are managed under sustainable forest practices, and we do go in, we do harvest. It is about some revenue generation, but it's also about sustaining the growth in those forests. It's never a clear cut. It's about thinning and providing opportunity for growth and maturity in those forests. We spend $25,000 a year in roadside tree planting, and that's we're looking at areas where we're trying to replenish maybe loss of ash, or trying to provide windbreak, or other different areas where we're trying to improve the roadside environment in a safe way, and then trying to put those trees in areas where we know in the short and medium and hopefully long term they're not going to be inhibiting or conflicting with other issues. And last but not least, we do deal with noxious weed complaints under the Weed Control Act, and that's something our weed inspector deals with through the summer months. It's been relatively quiet with COVID, but usually that can be pretty busy through summertime. And with that, that's the end. I'm happy to answer any questions there might be.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Don, for your presentation. I'll ask Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Again, Ben, thank you very much for your presentation. It's always good to have more information. I have a question in regards to the GPS. I know we're outfitting the county trucks. Is that something that that maybe you've worked with at our level as well to keep the technology kind of up to date? Because I know our roads departments work close together. Is this something that you've has happened for us as well, to update our equipment and maybe get a better rate if you're having more trucks and whatnot?
Yeah, and actually that's exactly what this project is all about. And we've spoke with, I'm trying to, and I apologize, Chris, I'm going to put Chris on the spot a little bit here. I can't remember if I know certainly we've talked with Yohan. I'm not sure if Chris was present when we chatted before Yohan's retirement, when we had those discussions. But yeah, that's our intent. Is this is, we're going to provide this opportunity to all local municipalities. If they want to participate with us, we'd be happy to have them and be happy to integrate in any way we can. Because to me, if we can click on another tab and we can see South Glengarry's information, I mean, to me, it's all, it's no different than looking out the window and being able to see that truck. So being able to share that information and provide that information, I think just helps everybody. So that'd be my intent, and it's certainly an opportunity that's there.
Just as a quick subsequent, Mr. Mayor, is that in all of the county's fleet, like the library, the pickups? Like, is that something that we have in all of our fleet, or just specific to the roads maintenance?
It's roads maintenance. Like, we, outside of the library van and a couple of our corporate SUVs, the fleet is our department. So it's really patrolling trucks, plows, pickups. Actually, we even have it in our tractors so that we can monitor mowing progress and things like that. So it isn't. It's 99% of our fleet.
It's a very useful tool when when you have someone say, well, they haven't been mowed my ditch in 6 weeks, but it was 2 weeks ago. So yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McDonnell, then Councillor Lang, and then Councillor Jaworski.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and maybe I missed this, Mr. DeHaan. How many units do we have that'll be set up at the county level for the preventative ice, like the liquid units?
Yeah, right now we only have one, but it is something we're looking to, and it's based out of St. Andrews, and our anti-icing run is related to bridge decks. So we have two routes that kind of hit all our major bridge decks right now. But what we'd like to do at a staff level is really expand that program and actually create 3 or 4 different anti-icing routes.
Okay. No, I guess it was just, it's always something that's caught my attention and maybe something we should be looking at township level. And maybe you would know this offhand as well, Mr. Dahan. Would that unit could it potentially double as a water truck, I guess, for summer maintenance?
100%. That is 100% what it does.
Cool. Maybe something for us to look for in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Thank you, Mr. Dahan, for the presentation. Just a quick question, and is ST&G County Road 19 a South Branch portion of it on the radar in the next year or so? It's getting kind of rough, and I was down there with some farm machinery the other day, and it was you notice it especially with farm machinery because no suspension.
Yeah, and I trust that it was unloaded farm machinery because we were still in half loads, and
You bet it was.
I appreciate that. I'm teasing. I'll be honest with you. I don't know off the top of my head, but both, and I'm happy to provide that information. I know both the mayor and deputy mayor, we provide council, and it's always on our council docs where council gets their agendas from, the 4-year plan. So I don't remember, but I can look it up. And if you haven't heard from me, don't be shy to ask your mayor or deputy mayor. I'm sure they could quickly look at that map too if I haven't responded fast enough.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks very much, Mr. Dahan, for your presentation. I just wanted two things. I wanted to say thank you very much for the work on the natural heritage study. I found that really interesting. I watched the presentation when they did the public meeting, and I thought it was really interesting. I got a lot out of it. I mean, obviously, natural heritage systems have a lot of value just inherently, but looking at it as a system and understanding where it has the most value to like conserve, connecting corridors and whatnot. I found that really helpful to sort of, to have a focus on, to say that there are some areas that perhaps should have more focus than others to get, better bang for your buck, so to speak, in terms of conservation efforts. And on that theme, in your presentation, you're talking about the county actively purchasing forested land. Now, do you only do that? You only buy from individuals, or do you buy from townships as well?
And I'll be honest with you, usually it's donated from townships more than bought from townships. And that happens frequently enough. We just actually got a donation from South Stormont, excuse me. So that's commonly how it gets to us from the local municipalities.
Okay, thank you.
That policy could change though, Stephanie, I guess maybe, but.
I was curious because that's you only said about purchasing.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Don? So not seeing none. Thank you very much, Mr. Don and Mr. Simpson, for being here this evening and giving us the information on what's going to take place in South Glengarry over the next year. So and the updates in the regards to the budget. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, we'll move right into staff reports, electronic signature policy. Ms. Compo, is that?
That's me. Good evening, council, and through you, Mr. Mayor. You'll recall at our last meeting that you received a draft copy of a electronic signature policy. So the policy is before you this evening to be approved. There have been no changes made to it since you saw it last. So pending any questions, the policy is before you tonight for approval.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, I want to reiterate that this is going to speedline a lot of processes, and it's going to reduce a lot of paper. So I'm very happy for this to be coming to fruition. Thank you.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, we just launched using it last week. Deputy Mayor Warden was my guinea pig and tested it out for me. So it's definitely going to be a very useful tool for us moving forward, especially in these pandemic times with limited ability to get in touch with people.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Okay, I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Sam McDonnell. Be resolved that the staff report 54-2021 be received and that bylaw 30-2021, being a bylaw to adopt an electronic signature policy, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 19th day of April 2021. You heard the motion. All in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Kumpel. Next on the agenda is the review of multi-unit water rates. I presume Mr. McDonald.
Yes, thank you. Can you see my screen all right? It's the water rate it says there. Perfect.
Yes, we can.
So not a big change from the last one. I was asked to review slightly more in depth and in detail the units because I'd kind of lumped them together before. So this is our previous methodology that had changed in 2018 is we had one lateral to the house and therefore we had one minimum. The change that was requested was, although there was one lateral, and this is that 1-for-1, is that there was one minimum charge per unit. And essentially our current situation is we decided to move to 1-for-1. We took a phased in approach. We started at 40% per subsequent unit, these units. We are now at 60%. Upon reviewing that, the former resolution, which I believe has to be defeated, you can ask the clerk specifically for that, but that was the previous report to council meetings before. Our new resolution is 60% for subsequent units. The math is in your staff report, and essentially it is that it overweighted for the smaller units. There's more of them, and additionally it overweighted some commercial units, which I took out of the mix. So the resolution, the new one is for 60% for subsequent units. Why the change? I had mentioned those two just a moment ago. So our recommendation is to defeat the previous resolution, to have subsequent units at 70% and approve subsequent units at 60%. And then following this, we're not done with water. I still need to review Kennedy Redwood for budget efficiencies, return to council with that recommendation, and then we will pass a bylaw with 5-year plans. I believe that's, aside from the staff report, that's the summary of it.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions or comments in regards to going to the 60%, I guess? Councillor Jaworski and then Councillor McDonnell.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, Mr. McDonald, for your work on this. Obviously, I'm a bit biased because obviously I was pressing for this, assuming I kind of had a feeling that the results were going to come in line with what you've presented with us, to us. But I do support what the 60% that you've shown is really in reality on the ground, really how these multi-unit apartments, their usage of water as compared to a single unit dwelling. But my question to you is, this work, if we stay at the 60%, is this going to have any material impact on the rate calculations that you've done for Lancaster, as a whole going forward?
No, it won't. So that's a good thing about this.
Okay, it's not big enough to have an impact?
Correct. We're talking about probably 30 some units out of 770 altogether. So it's a small portion, and we're already there right now. We're at 60%. So really it's just no change. We're not going up to 70% for subsequent units. So it won't impact anything.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll just echo a little bit of what Councillor Jaworski said. I'd like to thank you, Mr. McDonald, for your work on this. I know it was very time consuming, and you're very good to take the time to answer both of our persistent questions, sometimes in an independent Zoom meeting. So I really do appreciate that. And I'm happy with the work, and I do support this moving forward. I think it's fair.
Okay, thank you. So if everybody's comfortable in regards to going to the 60%, I'm going to read the first one, which is for the 70%. So we can, if that's the favor of the wishes of council, we can defeat this one, and then I'll have another motion in regards to the 60% one. So I have a motion moved by Lyle Warden, second by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 43-2021 is received and that the council of the corporation of the township of South Glengarry support the current Glenmalta rate structure, and that the Lancaster, South Lancaster multi-unit structure be amended to charge subsequent units minimums at 70% and remain there. So I'll ask, all in favor? Nope. Opposed? Thank you. So that motion is defeated. I have another motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Martin Lang. Be resolved that staff report 55-2021 be received of the council of the corporation of the township of South Glengarry, support the current rate structure and hold the subsequent unit charge at 60%. Any further comments or questions? Not seeing none. All in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. And we'll move to number 3, procurement 07-2021, purchase of a pickup truck. Mr. LeBlanc or Mr. Seguin, sorry.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. This evening, as the Mayor stated, I am bringing the procurement 07-2021 for the purchase of 3 new pickup trucks for the water and wastewater department within the township of South Glengarry. So we did have one submission that was received from Roy's Pontiac Buick GMC in Green Valley. So for the half-ton units, it came in at $33,950. And then we had both the gas and diesel for the 3/4 ton. So the gas came in at $43,600, and the 3/4 ton diesel came in at $54,250. So the township would like to, the staff would like to move forward with 2 half-ton trucks as per the procurement and 1 3/4 ton diesel for the roads department. So what would happen is the 3/4 ton would be delivered to the roads department, and in exchange for 1 of their half tons from procurement 01-2021.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Seguin. Any questions or comments from council? Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for your presentation, Dylan. I'm just wondering, a half-ton truck, is it defined as a quad cab, 4-wheel drive? Can you just give me a quick overview? Like, is it a regular cab, king cab?
So it is the same. So the 2 half tons that we would be purchasing are the same as the previous procurement. So it would be a 4x4, and I do believe a double cab with the smaller back door and the full 6-foot box.
Okay, perfect. I'd also like to bring up that I would like to have a further discussion at a round table. We talked about it before. Technology is evolving in trucks. Is it necessary to have a diesel? There are certain other hybrid trucks on the market. There are some electric vehicles. I'd like to, at a future time, I realize the prices are very good. And I know that it's necessary for this equipment to be replaced, but I would like to have a further discussion about potentially buying more green vehicles, or at least exploring that option as the technology for electrified vehicles is becoming better and more affordable. And I think as a municipality, I think that we should be seen as leaders and at least exploring it. Thank you.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I did take a quick look at some electric vehicles, but I think we are still a few years away from getting the electric trucks. I think between 2023 and 2025 is the main factory goals to have all electric trucks. So I do believe we are in the range of reaching it. I think we're maybe a year or 2 ahead. So.
Thank you very much. Subsequent, Mr. Mayor. I don't necessarily just mean for like trucks. The municipality has different applications for vehicles in its fleet. So just as a whole, a further discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Seguin? Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Seguin, for your report. I'd agree a little bit with Deputy Mayor Warden here. I don't necessarily say we're looking for an electric truck. I think what he was getting at was maybe more of a hybrid vehicle, or maybe an electric vehicle. Looking at that, they are getting to be a little more affordable these days. Maybe not so proven for myself yet, but I think it is an option in the future as we go forward. And that maybe brings to the other topic. Maybe there's some departments that don't always need a pickup truck. Maybe they need 1 or 2 as opposed to having 3 or 4. I mean, surely we can share when it comes to those things. I know the 3/4 ton truck, I will agree with. I think we do need that. I got a ride in the night patrol truck one day this winter, and it is evident that the blade on the front and the amount of work and that truck's doing, and it should be a 3/4 ton, and it maybe opens up our opportunity to do a little more with that truck, whether it's salting intersections when it is a little icier. So I look forward to having that conversation further on, maybe about different vehicles, choice vehicles. Pickup trucks are great, but a lot of companies getting away from them, and the township's no different than a company. So something to look to in the future. Thank you, though, for your report.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Warden? Oh, sorry,
I do
Councillor
apologize. Oh, go ahead.
Yep,
It's
Councillor Jaworski and then Deputy Mayor Warden, sorry.
I don't mind if Deputy Mayor Warden goes first, but okay. Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Sege, for your report. A couple of comments. I even though, you know, I work with diesel engines every day, and they're near and dear to my heart. Like, I do support very much what Deputy Mayor Warden is saying about having taking a closer look at what's coming down the pipe and what makes the most financial sense, and you know, also with a view to the environment, because I mean, technology is changing very quickly. I have a lot of customers who are adopting electric equipment into their fleets, like garbage trucks and buses, etc. So it's definitely coming. One comment I would like to make: I do appreciate very much that you tried to take a lens of the fuel economy of diesels versus gas, and I think in this case, maybe you probably diesel does win out, but I think you kind of overstated it a bit, because you know, the maintenance costs on the diesel, you know, the oil change is going to be quite a bit more expensive, and you know, you got your DEF fluid as well that you've got to incorporate in there. So I think really in this case, why the diesel is the right choice is really what the vehicle is going to be doing. And so I don't know if Mr. LeBlanc is online, if maybe he could just clear us up on what that vehicle is doing. And also the other way that diesel wins out is the engines are much more durable and last longer. So I'd like to make sure that there's a view on keeping this piece of equipment for quite some time.
LeBlanc?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we plan on keeping the truck for at least 12 years. Night patrol is in the winter time is important to our operations, and with the snowplow on the front of it, it can definitely hold the weight. Also in the summertime, we need the extra truck for pulling. We pull trailers, we pull culverts and packers and all that stuff for different construction jobs. I believe with the weight capacity, the truck in a diesel, we can that truck could last at least 12 years easy. With the DAF, we buy it in bulk for the most part. We have it at the garage constantly, and oil changes, our fleet mechanic does the oil changes right at the garage themselves.
Good, great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Warden?
I do apologize. I wanted to ask this before. For this procurement, there was only one bidder. Was the procurement circulated in the local papers and online? That was like our normal process, or I was just surprised that there wasn't somebody else bidding.
Yeah, so it was both put online and as well in the newspaper, twice to be exact.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I asked this question maybe a number of years ago, but because we're only getting one company putting numbers in regards to vehicles, are the tender documents or the documents, are they difficult to fill out, or are other companies not wanting to bother because they can't compete, or they? I've seen them a long time ago, and I thought at that point we looked at them and changed them a number of years ago, just because we weren't getting a number of companies putting numbers in, only because they were too lengthy and too difficult to try and match in regards to what the township was looking for. So I'm not sure where they are, but.
So I may be able to speak on that, Mr. Mayor. I did also have a secondary email, just no submission was ever submitted. So it may be due to that fact that maybe they're long and they prefer not to just bid because they're not too sure if they can be competitive in that manner. But we also did just have one in February of this year, and we did receive 3. So I'm not too sure why the other 2 didn't want to submit again, but we did get the one, and that's the one that I brought forward tonight.
Okay, Mr. Simpson. Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mills. It's been a long day, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Warden. Just on, we did receive information about there was a supply and demand issue that's in the recent tender that we know that COVID has had a real impact on supply and demand, particularly, and I won't name the other lines, but so GM seems to have that in hand. Just a comment about we can take a look at the documents that need to be filled in. But just, I mean, I don't want to make up excuses for anyone or to say that they should or shouldn't, but that's now six vehicles for sale. I think I would be figuring out how to fill in forms if I was making, over $200,000 in sales. So I don't think that's a deterrent at all.
I can appreciate that. I know a number of years ago, I had one company did call me back then just to state that they didn't fill it out just because it was too much information required, and there was no way they could compete in regards to what our documents were requesting. And that might have got changed way back. So I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to look at them again, just to see if we are being fair to all manufacturers out there.
Okay, and just and follow up to the discussion so far that I've noted, one in relation to asset management. So we have a comprehensive review of our fleet ongoing. We have everything down in spreadsheet life of when we should be replacing. We need to get that in order. And also on the environmental side. So I think this is something we could certainly bring to environmental committee. And, while it's just talk, you could say it's just a truck, or it impacts asset management, our fleet, our overall fleet review, and our environmental side as well. So we'll work on that as staff.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McDonnell. Did you have nothing? Sorry, thank you. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I did want to also state that these prices are very good. I'm not concerned that we're overpaying. You haven't been able to buy a truck for $33,000 for a long time retail. So I know for sure we're getting a good price. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Deputy Mayor Warden. It certainly wasn't against the company that was certainly putting the bid in. I was just curious in regards to why there's nobody else bidding. And if there's an opportunity to look at the documents. And I know Mr. Mills right, it's in regards to no inventory. So I know a lot of dealers are lacking inventory, and I think they're going to be lacking again in 2021. There certainly were in 2020, but so I'm sure that's a big part of the issue in regards that they couldn't supply the vehicles anyhow. But okay, I have a motion moved by Sam McDonnell, second by Lyle Warden. Be resolved that staff report 56-2021 be received, and that the council of the Township of South Glengarry award procurement 072021 for the purchase of 3 pickup trucks to Roy's Pontiac Buick for their submission of $33,950 plus HST, each for 2 half-ton units, and $54,250 plus HST for 1 3/4 ton unit, and furthermore that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign all relevant documents. You heard the motion. All in favor of the motion? The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Seguin. Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. And we'll move to number 4, appointment of Chief Building Official, Mrs. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. So the purpose of this staff report is to appoint our new Chief Building Official. On April 1st, Gary Poupard retired from our building department, and we have appointed Chris Raby and promoted him to Director of Development and Chief Building Official. The attached bylaw appoints Chris in his new position so he can act as a role as the building official, as well as complete the other necessary roles such as bylaw or municipal law enforcement. And you'll also see within the bylaw, we're providing him the ability to enter into agreements for conditional permits. A perfect example would be an agreement that that council suggested earlier this year for a new barn that was being constructed. And so it's important to have these types of powers within the bylaw to allow the chief building official to support conditional permits and to allow people to maybe do development in stages or get their development going. You will also see in the bylaw that we're repealing 2 previous other bylaws that would have appointed Mr. Poupard and Chris Raby as the Deputy Chief Building Official. And if there's any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. No questions or comments. I just want to say congratulations, Mr. Raby, on accepting the job of the Chief Building Official. I can honestly say over the last, when we announced that you were becoming the Chief Building Official, I've had phone calls and emails complimenting council and staff in regards to putting you into that position. So that's good to hear. We have certainly good comments in regards to your personality and the way you operate business in respect of running the building department in the municipality. So thank you for that and keep up the great work. I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Stephanie Jaworski. Be resolved that staff report 57-2021 be received and that bylaw 32-2021 being a bylaw to appoint a chief building official be read a first, second, third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 19th day of April 2021. You heard the motion. All in favor? The motion's carried. Thank you. Congratulations again. We'll move to other business, agreement template for the peanut line. Chief Robertson, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's a staff report that I have I've prepared, or really just a memo that I prepared to get councils to support to make sure that we're on the right track in terms of what you want to see within an agreement such as this. There's been some brief discussions previously, but I say brief only because we haven't had a chance to really get into exactly what council wants to see. I understand that these types of agreements could be used for different reasons, different purposes. So what I did in the memo was outline what should be involved in an agreement to make sure we're capturing all the important items that could reduce our liability, both for the municipality, but also for the abutting property owner, because they will be crossing the property. So you'll see in what I've drafted, it starts off with, who the parties are, the location, the legal description of the property, and then any works that are to be provided by the property owner. So if they're given permission to alter the peanut line, the municipality would be required to accept the works. Permission is also required for the municipality to be able to go on site onto the private property to complete inspections leading up to the lands that we own. Signage is going to be very important, especially if there's going to be continuous traffic that will be crossing the peanut line that would put any of our users at risk. And we talk about the signage being installed and costs covered by the property owner, and in some cases covered by the municipality. We also talk about setbacks. The purpose of the setbacks would be more for sight lines. There could be instances where you're concerned about debris or tractors or anything being placed too close to the peanut line that wouldn't allow a rider on the peanut line to be able to see the crossing that's coming up. There could be angles or curves. Not that that's that common, but it's possible. We also want to outline any services that would cross that peanut line. So natural gas is a perfect example, or any electricity. We would want to know exactly where it's installed on the peanut line. Kind of think of the call before you dig, if you will, so you know exactly what the locations are. Costs are important to speak to in terms of maintenance, signage, services, the responsibility of the property owner to keep those items up. In some instances, we may even want security deposits, especially if there's going to be significant alteration on the peanut line. We may want to choose to take a security, and then once the work is done to the satisfaction of the municipality, you would then refund the security deposit. Insurance is something that's always required when individuals are working on our municipal property, whether it's an unopened road allowance or road allowance. And the standard rate for insurance today is $5 million, with a certificate requiring the municipality to be additional insured in hopes that they wouldn't claim against our insurance policy immediately. It would go against their policy. And then we also speak to the possibility of emergency repairs and allowing the township or any company that we would require to go in and do any emergency repairs to ensure safety on the peanut line. And we may require that the agreements be registered untitled. This might not be necessary for every reason, but certainly can be something that council could insist upon. And then every agreement should really include schedules, and those schedules are going to be things like a site plan so that you can understand where the crossings are going to be, signage if required, any of the utilities that might be underground, as well as setbacks. Basically everything that I listed above could be or should be included in that site plan. So it's very clear. You should be able to read the site plan independent of this, of a long worded agreement. And you would also then include the securities in the insurance certificate as part of the schedules to the agreement. So this is just a basic outline of what the agreement would look like. And at this point, I'm looking for council's, support or blessing to move forward if we think we're on the right track. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Councillor Martinell, Councillor Lang, Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the report, Ms. Haley. I guess I have a lot of comments, I guess myself, just having lots of knowledge on it. I will forward most of them to you. I guess I'm looking for more of a general idea. Some of the comments that I had were in regards to signage, insurance. Are those more for properties that are, say, being crossed daily, or are we still talking, say, farm crossings that are being used 2-3 times a year or 4 times a year? Are we going to require every property owner along the peanut line to have insurance on their section, or is it just for, high traffic areas?
So it's my understanding that anyone that would have the ability to cross at this point in time, and I'll use a farmer as an example, if they're crossing that peanut line a few times a year for planting, harvesting, spraying, then I don't see the need right now to do any specific agreement or we just allow that to continue. I think if you use examples of a situation where we've recently come across where we have a property owner that's constructing a very large barn that will have a lot of vehicular traffic throughout the day. And it's those types of crossings where we're going to want specific agreements to outline the items like I just explained. Mr. Robertson may be able to add to that to make sure I'm on the right track, but that certainly was my goals or my thoughts on this. And so they would be unique agreements for unique circumstances.
That it wouldn't be every landowner is going to sign an agreement along the entire peanut line. That's not where we're going with this. Like you say, this more or less came out of a specific situation with rustlers. Okay, no, if that's good, I don't know if Mr. Robertson has anything to add, but that was just my concern that we were going to be potentially punishing farmers or regular land users that are, say, crossing it with their tractor going to get some hay or something, as far as getting insurance for that. It's just another cost of production to add on there.
So if I can just add something, Mr. Mayor, thank you. You probably realize that we've never required these agreements in the past. In fact, there were verbal permissions granted by administration in the past for other developments that have occurred. And it was this particular situation where a building permit was recently granted that became a condition of approval. So that's why we're moving forward with this and want to make sure that council feels we're on the right track. So again, I don't see this to be for, every property owner that's along the peanut line when they choose to cross on a casual basis. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Thank you, Ms. Haley, for the report. I know you're giving us a bit of time for comments, but I'm going to just make a few comments / questions now. Under number 2 for legal description of the subject lands, and I don't know if it would fit in there or one of the other ones. I'm hoping that we will, between us, and not necessarily for asking for a survey, but between us and the landowner, that we would just make sure that both parties were kind of in agreement of where the property line is approximately. Just I would be something done just on site. Say, do you agree that this is fence line is the property line? Just if somebody is thinking it's 50 feet different than what we would think it is, then I would say we have to go a step further. On number 5, permission to enter the property. I'm wondering why is this just so we don't have to drive down the peanut line to get to that property, that we would go through their property to get to it? like, we should be able to get to it through our own property by driving the peanut line to see this, what's happening there. I just wondered why we would need to go on the private property.
So I can answer that question through you, Mr. Mayor. So typically when you have agreements that are specific to a parcel of property, you always want to put in the agreement that you would have the right to access. So an example that would come to mind would be utilities. Now, we may never do any work on the utilities, but those utilities are coming from that private property onto the peanut line, over the peanut line to the other side in the private property. So if we needed to access that property to stand on the private property side, you know, to look at something or have a discussion or do an inspection, or, you know, if the trench was open, things like that, then it's in the agreement that we have the right to do so in case you ever ended up in a situation where a property owner was not cooperative. I think it's probably rare that that may happen. I think it's probably going to be common where we're going to have signage typically within the allowance of the peanut line, given the fact how wide it is. But these are just in case scenarios because you don't know. There also could be an accident on the peanut line. I realize emergency services could go in at any time, but again, that wording is typical on agreements to make sure you can always access the private property if needed.
All right, thank you. Number 9 just says cost to create new crossings, maintenance, signage, services, etc. shall be the responsibility of the property. I'm assuming that means property owner, and I'm assuming it's not us as the property owner, it's the private property owner. It wasn't real clear the way it was written. And then,
I apologize for that.
That's okay. And then number 14 is, I'm just curious about a site plan. Are we going to ask them to have a site plan drawn up by an engineer, or is this something that could be drawn up, you know, I guess it would depend maybe on how complicated the site plan is, but I'm hoping that they're not going to have to hire an engineer to draw the site plan up, that they can, you know, put something together so we know where the crossing is and any utilities that they're hoping to put through it. That was my thought on that one. And then the other one that I just thought of when you're talking about utilities crossing, maybe we should have some say as how deep they are, sort of thing, because if we ever decide to use this as a utility corridor ourselves, we'd hate to have all the private utilities crossing if they have, you know, wires or phone lines or manure pipes or whatever. I know we do have one of those crossing. Make sure they're deep enough that it wouldn't affect us if we're using that as a corridor. That's my thoughts at the moment. Thanks.
So to answer your question in regards to the site plan, so through you, Mr. Mayor, the intent of the site plan was not to force them to hire an engineer or a surveying company to come up with a detailed site plan that would be, you know, to perfect scale. But let's use the example of utilities again. Typically, when you're installing utilities, especially if it's going to be gas or hydro, there is a design that those companies do. And we could ask for copies of those designs to become a part of a schedule of that agreement. And then those designs are going to show the location, the depth of the location, there's industry standards and how deep they go. And so that would be a really important attachment to have. In terms of the actual site plan itself, with the ability to use GPS today or Google Earth today, I think we could come up with a decent site plan that'll show the general crossings, the general location of signage, the general location of setbacks. We know how wide our land is, so we know where that is. And I think we can do all that by controlling the costs and still having a visual plan that should be reasonable so that when we arrive on site, we know what it means. It definitely was not my intention to force, you know, a formal engineer or a surveyor to spend a lot of money on a design.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Ward.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, Ms. Haley, for this draft proposal or a guideline for agreements. I think it's very much necessary. The only thing that I guess I'd like to see on here somewhere is specifically, I guess, lighting, where if just, I know the one place where I stopped a couple weeks ago, what kind of spurred this discussion. I don't know if it's possible for lighting, you know, it's just, you can never have enough stuff. And if it's something that where if electrical's going underneath, We dealt with an encroachment agreement today at the county level. So it's something I think that can easily be done. And I'm sure there's a template that wouldn't take a lot of time for you to spend on, but lighting was the only additional something that I thought would maybe if it could be considered.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Haley, Chief Robertson, I just wanted to thank you. I mean, obviously it looks like a lot of work went into putting together this template, and I'm really pleased that based on the meeting we had where the barn is being built on the other side of the peanut line, that, you know, you took what council was saying to heart in terms of, you know, making sure that there are agreements for these kind of crossings. So thank you very much on the progress you've made so far.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Haley, when are you looking for to bring this back as a bylaw? You might have said it earlier and I missed it, but.
So I actually wouldn't prepare a general bylaw. What I'm anticipating on doing is preparing an agreement on a site-by-site basis. Depending on time, it's possible that a draft agreement regarding this site we've been speaking of specifically, where a recent barn is or a barn has been recently under construction. It's possible I may have that on the May 3rd agenda. We've already completed a site visit. We've met with the property owner. We've looked at some of the scenarios on site. There is some information that I'm waiting on in terms of the underground utilities. So May 3rd may not be feasible. And then from there, I think I have a comment in my staff report or in my memo that it may be possible that we want to look at turning this into a policy very similar to what we do with our unopened road allowances and asking for permission to do works on the peanut line. And that way, then we're always guaranteed to work with individual property owners. So we're going to work on that a little bit more internally, but you're only going to see a bylaw when it's associated with a site-specific agreement, not a general bylaw.
Okay, thank you. So gives us some time, I guess, in regards that if anybody has any further questions or comments, that they can get a hold of Mrs. Haley.
Oh, definitely, for
Lots of
sure.
time.
It can always be a working document.
Yep, perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move to the other items that were pulled from information purposes only. So we have the building permit statistics, first quarter 2021. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. And I'd like to thank Mr. Raby for the report. And I don't have a lot to say about the report. I just read it and I just say, wow, like we're double the permits of last year and $10 million higher in construction value. So you've got your work ahead of you, Mr. Raby. But thanks for bringing it. I like to see these things, and I wasn't aware that things were booming so fast.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thanks for the comment, Councillor Lang. Building permit certainly has been busy so far in the first quarter of 2021, but you know, we have a good team and we're up for the challenge.
Thank you. Just a comment in regards to that. I agree with you, Mr. Raby, that we do have a great team behind us. My phone has not rang once in regards to any issues with the building departments in respect of having that many permits out. So that's a good sign. So please congratulate your team and definitely keep up the great work. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. To echo my colleagues' comments to you, Mr. Raby, thank you very much. And just to give you a sense of how big the numbers are, I was convinced there was an error. And I was going to ask you where the mistake was because the numbers are so big. So congratulations. And I certainly haven't received a call, a negative call about the building department in a very, very long time. So kudos to you and your team.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I certainly appreciate the kind comments. One thing about the report that may have affected the numbers slightly, which would be the 12 water and sewer permits that have been included. So that would represent the equivalent of about $100,000 there. So that is one thing that was not reported in the previous years by the CBO, but there's a little bit of work on our end in the building department. So I would like to continue to report those stats to council moving forward.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Raby. The second one is a letter from SD&G library request. Councillor Lang.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just they would like to put one of those, I don't know exactly what they call it. They're those like a drop box or a mini library at the community center in Martintown, and they seem to be asking if we would support that. And I think we should. They're looking forward to hearing back from us. So I would like to support that we allow them to go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Warden and Councillor McDonnell.
Through Mr. Mayor, yes, I sit on the library board at the county level, and these little libraries are fantastic. And in this kind of environment that we're in, people can go at their leisure, walk up, take a book, and go home. So I thank you for bringing it forward. It was on my list to bring forward, but I hope the rest of council will support this as well.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McDonnell, then Councillor Jaworski.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, thanks for pulling this forward, Councillor Lang. I agree 100%. I guess I'll just echo what everyone else has said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jaworski.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Lang, for pulling it. Yeah, I fully support it. I think it's a fantastic idea, and they chose a great location.
Yeah, thank you. I also sit on the library board with Deputy Mayor Warden, and it's something that they certainly discuss, and I think they want to see that in definitely more communities. I remember a couple of years ago, there was one in the Glen Walter area, just unfortunately near a curve, but a little dangerous area maybe to have one, but it was well used. So I think this is another alternative, especially with COVID-19, the pandemic that we're going through. So it's an alternative for people to go and get a book without interfering with any other ones or being in around any other people. So it's you can pick up a book or leave a book. So I think it's a great project to start, and it's I agree with Councillor Jaworski. I think it could be in a great area. So it'd be great to see it throughout South Glengarry at some point, but it's certainly a good start to see it being put in Martintown. So I'll ask the clerk maybe to bring a resolution back at the next council meeting, or would you have one ready for this evening?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do not have one currently prepared. I can bring one for the next meeting if that's okay with council.
Yeah, I think that's more than fair. I mean, it's probably a little bit early to get it out anyhow, so that's fine. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lang. Number 6 is Letter Butterfly Way Project. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I read this and I thought it was interesting, and I was wondering if staff could come back to see if this is something that we can do. I don't believe it's a huge expense, but I think again, if we can be forward thinking and do stuff to help nature, I think it's a good thing.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jaworski.
Sure, I'd just like to speak in support of what Deputy Mayor Warden said. It sounds like it's a fairly simple project. It sounds like it'd be a very grassroots type thing. So I hope that staff can come back with something on how we can participate.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I thought about bringing this one forward too, and I kind of changed my mind. I didn't know if there would be any support around the table for it. So I'm kind of surprised that there is, and pleasantly surprised, I guess. We do have property that likely would classify for this now. And I did mention this to Councillor McDonnell a little earlier, but we have those kind of overgrown fields where just north of where we're hoping to put where we're going to put the new township roads garage. And I think they're full of goldenrod and likely different varieties of pollinator plants at the moment. Likely about 10 acres in there worth of it. Just a thought.
Okay, thank you. Chief Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it'd be fairly easy for staff to, part of the request was for us to promote it for citizens to implement it on their own. But I think staff through the municipality, we can also look at some of our own properties and see how that we can enable this type of an application. So we'll come back to council with a bit of an inventory of municipal lands that we can support this. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. We will look forward to that at a future council meeting. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Warden. And number 10 is resolution support for fire departments, Township of Hudson. Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Township of Hudson just put this forward, and I don't claim to know a lot about it, but they're therefore be resolved is just asking that the federal and provincial government allow fire apparatus, training, equipment, structures to qualify for infrastructure projects. So if they currently don't, I'm all in favor of that they allow it, and you know, maybe it would be something that we could take advantage of.
There's no other one. Okay, any other comments? So Councillor Lang, you're asking to bring that back at another council meeting? Or I actually have a motion right now, I think. I do. I'll read the motion and I'll ask for a seconder and we'll go from there. So I have a motion, be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry hereby supports the resolution passed by the Township of Hudson and calls upon the federal and provincial governments to include apparatuses, training, equipment, and structures for fire departments as eligible categories to any further infrastructure programs. And furthermore, that this resolution be forwarded to the Honorable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honorable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Ontario Fire Marshal, John Pegg, the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs, and the Township of Hudson. Should we also ask it to be forwarded to our local MPP? I will add that in. So I have a motion. It was moved by Martin Lang. If I can have a seconder, moved by Deputy Mayor Warden. If there's any other further comments, all in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you, Councillor Lang. And if there's nothing further on those, I have a motion moved by Stephanie Jaworski, second by Lyle Warden. Be resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry accepts the items presented on the agenda as committee reports and for information purposes only. All in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. We'll go to unfinished business. We'll go right into corporate services, docks on township property. Mr. Mills.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I'm pleased to report that we're able to speak to the last owner that hadn't purchased the property in front of them on the waterfront in Glen Walter, and things are in motion there for preparing purchase. That being said, I would recommend this come off of unfinished business. We will have further business though when you go to the west of the properties that have all been sold, the 8 properties in front. Just to inform council, and I think we should, if you haven't recently, take a trip down there and have a look. There's a lot of green space. We've talked as a council before and as staff about green space on the waterfront. We have a lot of opportunity there, and there'll be a few staff report coming in the future regarding what the possibilities are there. So it's good news.
Perfect. Yep, that's great news. Thank you. And municipal servicing from the city in Cornwall.
So we continue to engage all the property owners and business owners along Boundary Road. We have another advisory committee meeting this week in a few days, and where the consultant will present options, and we're ready now to go to the next step with the city of Cornwall, and or one way or on our own, but one way or another, we got to make a decision. We're at the decision-making stage now.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And move into finance services, water rates and water bill design.
Water rates was
water rates.
Oh yeah, water rates was on tonight, and then the next step is to do water rates for Canadian Redwood. Water bill design is with the battery development team, and LED street lights. That's imminent. So we're just awaiting response, but I think it's that last week that we had asked for a response to be received.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry, Councillor McDonnell.
Just if Mr. McDonald can give us a little more information on the LED streetlights. I'm trying to remember now what it was. I don't have a note written down here from last week.
Can I jump in, Mr. Mayor, on that one?
Yep, go ahead,
Please?
Mr. Mills.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. McDonald did an analysis of cost for us. I wrote a letter to the local manager for Cornwall Electric, requesting a response by the end of the week. I would like to leave it at that. We're definitely far down the road on this file. I'm anticipating that we're going to get a positive response, and if we don't, we have certainly a game plan and how we're going to work that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Maybe I could just, I don't know if you want to add anything further, Mr. McDowell. I know you did a lot of work on the finance side, but I think we, at our next meeting, we'll have an update on it. And then we may have to talk about further strategy at that point.
I think there's one I proposed that I don't have to repeat, but I'd like to see that maybe potentially put on the table at this point, but yeah, my personal opinion.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to table that. That's why Mr. McDonald and I are leading this. We want to solve that on the administrative side first. I think that's the best approach.
Okay, thank you. We'll look for a later update for them, hopefully at the next meeting. Deputy Mayor Warden.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Mr. McDonald, can we, now that we've settled the water rate issues, can we get on Vatum for a response? I don't think it takes that long for them to get back to us for a water rate bill design. Now that we've kind of settled the other side, I'd like to see something soon. So if you could maybe follow up with them, because this has been on the docket for well over a year now. Please and thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. I don't believe there was anything else. Our list is getting shorter and shorter, so that's great to see. I have a motion moved by Martin Lang, second by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry convene to close session at 8:31 p.m. to discuss the following items under Section 239 of the Municipal Act as SO 2001. A meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is a proposed pending acquisition or disposition of land under Staff Report 58-2021 and also Staff Report 59-2021. You heard the motion. All in favor? The motion's carried. Thank you. I will stay in part for the first part of the closed session, and I'll ask Deputy Mayor Warden to take the second part. Thank you very much. We will go into closed session.